all things considered, this most recent week, pretty easy tyrannical week. This next fortified week is also going to be quite prime for pushing keys. If you're looking to farm up the last couple of pieces of gear to complete some of your gear, this is definitely going to be an opportune week. On top of that, we are getting another catalyst charge as well, so a lot more people are going to have their 4 sets, and generally this is going to be about the time where people start to, get good gear. And so let's talk about what affixes we're going to have this week in Mythic Plus. And the affixes are going to be Fortified, Volcanic, Spiteful, coming off the back of a Tyrannical, Entangling, Bursting week. Fortified, Volcanic, Spiteful, not too bad. I think it is a quite easy affix set, all things considered. Spiteful has been, nerfed. It got nerfed last season. It doesn't scale past 20, the melee damage that the mobs do. The melee damage that the mobs do is also quite a bit lower than it has been in the past. They're not going to be one-shotting you or anything. So overall, Spiteful, not a super big affix. Obviously, Volcanic is also pretty chill. Something that you can do with Spiteful, though, is have a weak aura that nameplates and anchors the fixate icon to the nameplates and also plays a sound whenever you get affected by Spiteful. It's actually pretty helpful for those who are going to be dealing with the affix, particularly melee, just to make sure that you're aware that you have Spiteful on you and it can help you minimize some of the damage that you're going to be taking. Overall, though, I think this is a great Volcanic week for pushing. Okay, and so this is kind of where I was ranking the dungeons coming into this Tyrannical week. I feel like I was pretty right. Maybe Darkheart Thicket's a little bit lower on Tyrannical weeks than I initially thought. Darkheart Thicket actually becomes quite a bit more challenging on Tyrannical weeks just as the bosses scale pretty hard. As for Fortified weeks, I think that this week's affixes are a pretty non-factor in most keys. I think the Everbloom comes up a little bit. I think Throne of the Tides probably stays in C because the Gauntlet is still pretty hard. I think Murozond's Rise has probably the hardest timer of the season, but I think that both of these dungeons are in C on this week. Galakron's Fall, I think, comes up to A. I don't think that dungeon is particularly hard. Black or Cold, Wicker's Manor, Darkheart Thicket. Maybe Darkheart's down in B, but I think that Darkheart's probably up in A with the rest of these, and the Taldazar is probably still up in S, where the timer and everything that you have to deal with in a Taldazar is still quite lenient relative to other keys, and so that makes it pretty easy. Additionally, we've had some class tuning. Unfortunately, no dungeon tuning, but there's been a little bit of class tuning. So Frost DK getting some buffs, particularly to their AoE, so now maybe the spec is a little bit better in Mythic Plus. They were already playing an Obliterate build, and now their Obliterate's getting buffed, and Chill Streak and stuff like that. The spec might actually end up being pretty solid in 5-man content. I don't expect it to take up like a meta spot or anything like that. It's not something that's bad. Restoration Druid getting a 3% increase to healing. Resto Druid was already a spec that was seeing a decent amount of play. It was doing a lot of damage because of the Heart of the Wild and the cat form changes that came in right at the very beginning of the patch. The spec is able to kind of do 100k DPS overall in a dungeon. If you're piloting a really well played Resto Druid, it's able to do an insane amount of damage. Just a little bit more healing while this is aimed mostly at raid. It's something that's pretty good for Mythic Plus and not something you're going to be super upset about. Shadow Priest, damage increased by 5%. The spec is still not overly great in Mythic Plus. Kind of same with Destruction Affliction Warlock. Even while both of them are getting some aura buffs, it's not something where you're going to see a major shift in the meta because of these specializations. It's kind of a situation where if you were already playing with that spec or playing as that spec, you're definitely going to be doing a little bit more damage. You're going to be pretty happy about it, but it's not something that's going to be a massive change at all. And nothing necessarily changes for compositions. I will say that some stuff maybe gets a little bit better. Havoc Demon Hunter is probably going to run a lot more Fel Barrage, a lot less Essence Break builds, where on Tyran, Essence Break is a major single target damage shift. And so that's something that they can and sometimes do play around. Beast Mastery Hunter, they don't have the highest amount of single target damage in the game, but they do an insane amount of AoE. So that's also something that might be a little bit better on Fortified or slated a bit more in that Fortified area. Also something maybe like a Ret Paladin, a bit better, generally speaking, towards Fortified. Whereas Tyrannical, especially at the higher key levels, a lot of the stuff with Tyrannical is you need to be able to survive. So Augmentation Evoker is very good at the high levels. Rogue is very, very good at high levels to make sure that you're just able to live and you're never going to die. For healers, I feel like the healer meta is really in flux right now. It's kind of hard to nail down what's going to be the best. Tanks, it's a lot of Vengeance Demon Hunter. I do think that Blood Decay is quite tanky this season, and they're very good on Tyrannical weeks at tanking trash. They do maybe get a little bit worse on Fortified, whereas Vengeance Demon Hunter is about the same all the way through. But I think that the tanks, you're going to see just a lot of Vengeance Demon Hunter this season generally, and I think that that's probably going to be the best tank. But overall, this is going to be a great week to be pushing, and I hope to see you guys in some keys, and I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.